William Henry Harrison Murray was an American writer and clergyman, most known for his stories of adventure in the Adirondacks. He was born in 1840 in Guilford in Connecticut. He studied at Yale from 1858, graduating in 1862. That same year he married Isadora Laura Hull Murray, described as an early woman physician. Between 1869 and 1873 he served as minister for the First Congregational Church in Greenwich and Meriden, while also delivering Sunday evening lectures. His book on his travels, Adventures in the Wilderness, sold very well, and drew a huge crowd of pleasure seekers ranging from 2,000 to 3,000 into the Adirondacks, which was referred to as Murray's Rush. Apparently the book sold so well, other publishers began issuing unlicensed tourist editions with railroad timetables and a map included, while railroad companies began to flat out give the book away to promote more tourism. This event ended up earning Murray the nickname Adirondack Murray, while coining the term Murray's Fools for his followers. Among other things, he would also breed Morgan horses at his farm at Guilford, found a failed periodical called The Golden Rule, tried to get into the lumber business in Texas, and ran a restaurant in Montreal before settling down on his farm. Murray had deserted his wife in 1880, though the pair would not divorce until 1886. That same year, Murray married Frances Mary Rivers, the couple supposedly having 4 daughters, though I could only trace the names of 3. Murray died at Guilford in 1904. The Doom of Mamelons seems to be a most striking exception in Murray's usual output. Having only skimmed or researched his other works very briefly, of course I cannot be certain that there isn't more to unearth, but the general consensus is he wrote stories in the adventure vein, if not outright humorous stories, as seems to be the case with his The Busted Ex-Texan and other stories. One of the even odder things about this novel is the personage of the male lead, John Norton. Murray had actually written other stories about the trapper John Norton before this decidedly weird Baroque novel, such as in the collection John Norton's Thanksgiving Party and Other Stories, or in How John Norton the Trapper Kept His Christmas. We begin on the trail along which we follow trapper John Norton, making his way in response to a summons written on a pile of birch bark which, presented to him by an absolutely exhausted runner, summons him to the deathbed of a dying chieftain and close friend 500 miles away. The dying chief tells John Norton of the Great War where he and his allies fought an army of 1,000 Eskimo at the place called Mamelons, where the chieftain as a young man led the remnants of the Lenape tribe. The legendary battle was the conclusion of a 1,000-year feud between the mountaineers and the Eskimo, with the air above being full of the spirits of the dead of 1,000 years still fighting fiercely. That is, until a sudden earthquake presages a volcanic eruption, the old chief believing that God himself had stopped the fight at Mamelons. The chief himself found a most unpleasant surprise when he was searching among the dead after the battle was over. Now, as the chief is dying, his daughter Atla will be the last of her race, doomed to a horrible fate like all of her line. The doom is foretold to all of their race due to a mingling of, quote, red blood with white, and only one born from a female of the line and from a sire without the cross can be safe from the doom. After the chief's burial, his daughter takes the gift left to her by her deceased mother and opens it. A message was left behind for her, saying that their race, linked by a strange ancestry to the Basque people, was apparently old in the days of old Egypt, in the days when giants were on the earth. Her mother herself was of a line of queens, and revealed to her daughter the existence of ancient cities and forgotten races in the world's beginning, also heeding her daughter to find a mate, that a son may be born to her to avoid the prophesied doom. Finally, Atla was also the recipient of an ancient scroll describing the beginning of the world told by those who saw it. In the months leading up to spring, Atla teaches the trapper the knowledge contained in the ancient records left behind by her race, reaching 10,000 years into the past, into the days when all the living lived in the east and the dead went westward to die. Atla must try to win the heart of John Norton while trying to defy the unchangeable command of destiny, which decrees she must meet her race's doom at Mamelons. The heavy, doom-laden atmosphere of the story makes this one a worthwhile read. There was also a sequel to the story called Ungava, seemingly picking up right where Mamelons left off, but it seems to be a more straightforward adventure story.